It's yet another edition of the Shirlma Show. And guess what? We've been honored to be in the presence of Dr. Tata Emmanuel Fona, a food technology specialist, and he's also into machine building. Guess what? He's also the CEO and founder of AfroBrains Cameroon. Welcome to the Shirlma Show, Doc.
Thank you so much. It's an honor for me to be here.
It's really a pleasure to have you.
Oh, the pleasure is mine.
So please tell me, what's really the story behind AfroBrains Cameroon?
Yeah, I mean, just like there are lots of stories of great things that's been going on around the globe. AfroBrains Cameroon is one of those unique things, one of those unique initiatives that belongs to Cameroon that we thought is one of those ways forward. You see, in Cameroon, we have a lot of challenges. And one of those challenges, as even stipulated by the United Nations, is that we're suffering from food, not enough food. In other words, food insecurity. So besides the social insecurity, besides the territorial insecurity, we also have food insecurity in our country. So after the COVID, while the COVID was going on, I was abroad, and I noticed back home in Cameroon, people were committing suicide because they borrowed money, cultivated crops, specifically tomatoes. That was the particular case that I stumbled across. When they did cultivate these tomatoes, and the unfortunate situation that happened was that the COVID came in and there was a lockdown, and they could not be able to transform the tomatoes to maybe the finished form that would take a lot more time on the shelves of the supermarket, and they had to allow these tomatoes to get rotten. So I mean, a lot of Cameroonians would bear witness that tomato prices went so down, lower than even cost of production. So in the midst of all this, I was like, because at the time I was in China, I was studying, and I told myself, but what is the essence of studying and not being able to solve a problem or a challenge in the community? So I decided that, okay, I was going to look at the possibility to, address this issue. So I started building machines, which is what I'm specialized in. I started building machines in my garage and putting in containers until I was able to build machines that could actually provide a mini solution, because the whole idea was to show to Cameroonians that, because I know a lot of Cameroonians are out there, a lot of Cameroonians are in Cameroon that have finances, but they don't know that Cameroonians can do these things. So I thought it was in my responsibility to show them that it's possible in Cameroon.
That's amazing. Good job there. So, but I discovered that more than just the transformation of food, you're actually focused on organic food. So now I guess my question will be, how do you ensure that everything that is actually being processed at AfroBrains Cameroon is actually organic?
Yeah, I mean, this is a very important aspect in the whole company, because you see, the health of Africans has not been what they are supposed to be. That it's not been what it's supposed to be, because in Africa we've had this culture of consuming everything that comes from abroad. But science has shown that food can actually be genetically modified to do anything that we want it to do. We can actually genetically modify food to make people to become gay. Actually, this is something that a lot of people don't know. We can genetically modify food to make people to start developing sexual affections towards people of the same sex. We can genetically modify food to actually destroy a particular race, whether it's black people or it's white people. We can genetically modify food to be able to do that. So these things scared me. It's a very simple technology, straightforward technology. So it scared me that if people in Africa are still consuming food that they don't know where it's coming from. Because one of the research that I actually did at my PhD, which was shut down, was to actually differentiate between genetically modified foods and non-genetically modified foods. The research was shut down because the environment in which our farmers, that was in China. Of course, China has about 90 or 95% of its food being genetically modified. So because of that, that research was not in its comfortable environment. I was clearly told that. So I told myself, but in Africa, we have natural food. In Africa, we have healthy food. So why don't I take this knowledge to Africa and make great use of it? So I decided to come back home here.
And you also preach a lot about food insecurity. Then you also talk about post-harvest losses. So how are you actually dealing with this when it comes to AfroBrains Cameroon?
Yeah, I mean, one of the objectives or goals of AfroBrains Cameroon is not just to be a company like other companies, but to be a solution to one of the world's problems, global problems. And one of the world's global problems right now is food insecurity. And Cameroon is listed, ironically, Cameroon is listed. Why do I say ironically? Because Cameroon is one of the world's producers of bananas. So ironically, Cameroon is also listed as one of the world's countries in which food insecurity is of concern. So I believe that if with AfroBrains objective or with AfroBrains, we can be able to encourage farmers to increase their productivity. When this productivity is increased, we can do transformation and we can reduce the quantity of food that is wasted. Remind you that Cameroon produces about 6 million tons of cassavas. Cameroon also produces about 5 million tons of plantains. And the funniest thing is that out of this 6 million tons of cassavas and 5 million tons of plantains, Cameroon loses 50% of these. And with this 50% loss, we still go ahead to import about 1 million tons of wheat flour. Now, what this means is that we're importing what we already have. So it is our wish at AfroBrains that we get to a point where the resources that we use to import wheat flour, we can use these resources very easily to transform the 2.5 million tons or 5 or 6 million tons of food that we lose every year. And the food we lose is in the form of what? Post-harvest losses. What do I mean by post-harvest losses? When you go to the market, you see the women who are selling plantains. You see the plantains are getting ripe. Sometimes you don't really go to see when the plantains are already rotten. But the thing is that most often than not, they keep these plantains for people to buy. People don't end up buying. And if you sum all the plantains across all the markets in Cameroon, we lose 50% of the plantains that we cultivate every year. So my wish and that of AfroBrains is that we, instead of importing wheat flour, which we really don't need, because wheat flour actually contains gluten. You know, gluten is a complex compound, and gluten has a health implication. And gluten, a lot of people, about 1.9 million Cameroonians are suffering from gluten, what we call gluten intolerance, which means that 1.9 million Cameroonians have a problem consuming gluten, but they don't know. It's the same thing in France. It's not like because Cameroon is a less developed country. The same thing in France. About 690,000 people in France also are suffering from gluten intolerance, or what we call celiac, but they don't know about it because they eat a lot of wheat products, bread, cakes, all these things produced out of gluten. But these glutens are complex compounds. So what happens if we are able to transform our cassava flour, our plantain to plantain flour? What this means is that we're going to be able to solve the problem of gluten intolerance amongst our population. So it's not just about creating or reducing food insecurity, but it's also responding to a national health concern or a public health issue. So AfroBrains' objective is also looking at addressing the food insecurity, also addressing the gluten intolerance, health issues, because we say that you are what you eat. And until we get to a point where we eat food as medicine, okay, because it's generally said that if you do not eat food as medicine, you will eat medicine as food in the future. So we are looking at a situation where we can encourage Cameroonians to recognize that food is medicine, and then they can be able to continue to eat this way.
More with Dr. Tata Emmanuel Fon after the break. If you're just joining us today on the Shirlma Show, we've been honored to be in the presence of Dr. Tata Emmanuel Fon, the CEO and founder of AfroBrains Cameroon. So before the break, right, we're talking about the importance of using locally made machines, right? But another thing that you see most people, maybe while I'm talking to entrepreneurs, and sometimes I find it, let me say, challenging or sometimes to even buy locally made machines, is because when they even compare it with maybe imported machines, you find that imported machines are way cheaper than even machines that are manufactured here. So what is AfroBrains doing differently to make these machines more affordable to some of these startups or entrepreneurs or maybe farmers also who might need the machines?
Yeah, I mean, thank you very much. You see, when we talk about locally made machines and we talk about imported machines, there's basically no difference. It's just that people have, the culture of Africans has been to depend on imported materials. An imported machine could still be of lower standard than a locally made machine, in the sense that what makes the machine, what the most important aspect of the machine is if that machine meets up with the international standards of what machines are supposed to be or food grade machines are supposed to be. Let me give you a typical example. You need a machine to mill corn, for example. We all grew up eating corn from machines that were not food grade because these machines were produced out of iron. So these machines, when they grind the corn, bits and bits of iron remain inside the food because the material, iron is not a material which is internationally recognized as food grade, meaning that it's not a material that can be used. Have you ever asked yourself a question? When you go to some of these places that produce local machines, they produce the machines, they paint it. Have you ever asked yourself where that paint goes to after some years? You come and realize that the paint has been wiped. Where does the pain go to? It's in your stomach. So the thing is, when you buy a machine from abroad, sometimes it has the same quality. So it is not about the machine coming from abroad or the machine being produced locally. It is about the machine meeting up with international standards. You're right when you say that the machines that are produced locally might be relatively expensive. Maybe because the people who take the patience to produce machines locally is because they have come to realize the difference between quality food grade machines and non-food grade machines. So they produce what is food grade and it could be much higher. However, China happens to be the world's producer, the world's greatest reserve of stainless steel. But in Cameroon, we have stainless. Stainless steel is a product of iron, I should say. So AfroBrains, what AfroBrains is doing is that we are molding. We started molding our own metals. We started molding our own car parts. We started molding our own motorbike parts and all those things. So progressively, we're looking at the possibility of actually putting away that whole perception that imported machines are of better quality. There's no better. I taught Chinese how to build machines. I taught Chinese how to conceive machines. So there's no difference between what a Chinese conceives and what a Cameroonian can conceive. So all those things are perceptions that are not even realistic, are not scientific. They have no scientific backing. The only thing is that Chinese are many more of them, and we are fewer. China is a huge fraction of the world. Cameroon is just a small country. We'll get there, but we need to take our own time. China took their own time. The Chinese, as a people, are much older. Their system is much older, has lasted a long time, much more than the Cameroonian system. So we'll get there, but we'll take our time. But the whole idea is we have to believe in ourselves.
Amazing. Now, talking about actually like kind of like developing Africa and being interested in for instance, in Cameroon, right? I keep wondering, how can we actually share maybe the knowledge that we already have in maybe in Africa? What are some of the things that you feel like the business people in Cameroon can learn, for instance, from Ghana, for instance?
Yeah, well, I think it's more of business environment because I happen to have done business in Ghana. My first company was actually based in Ghana. Yeah, M Technologies. It's run by my students right now. So I train quite a group of students who are managing the company in Ghana right now. So it's more like a business environment. You see, the business environment in Ghana, it's more comfortable. It's it's um it's more humane, you know. It's more humane,
What do you
and
mean by that?
it's more humane in the sense that it's more environmentally friendly
In what aspect?
in the aspect of the state financing.
Oh.
The state has more stake in most small companies. You know, I mean, I've been called several times to come and take money to expand my business in Ghana. Yeah, but I, of course, because I'm in Cameroon, I can't be in two places at the same time. Yeah, so it's more, they have more concern, especially when they see an initiative that has
Potential.
this impact, this impact. Yeah, because with Matrix Wireless in Ghana, it had to do with providing solutions to companies, providing solutions to providing initiatives to young people to develop IT solutions. I have a lot of my students who have produced who have started a lot of small companies. They are producing IT solutions. They are providing. I mean, I show them how to really get the technologies and how to, because you see, there's a gap in the technology, say in America, in the technology, say in China, where there's a difference, there's an opportunity. Where there's a difference, there is an opportunity. Black, white, there is an opportunity. Wherever there is a difference, there is an opportunity. Because the technological level in China is different from the technological level in Ghana, there is a business opportunity. So you cannot gain an opportunity in a similarity. Okay, so we're able to identify some of those type of things, take some of these advantages, spread them out in the form of ideas, and create opportunities. And the government comes to assist. They don't assist the small companies by themselves, but they assist the small companies through initiatives like yours. Because you see, when you are bringing small companies, and these small companies that you talk to, these small companies that you have interactions with, there are ways in which you can also be able to provide them or to create a forum for them to get technical support, for them to get, financial support in a very technical way, in a very guided way, you know what I mean? Yeah, in a very guided way, because it requires guidance. Yeah, it always requires guidance. Trust me. The problem of most small companies in Africa is not money. The problem is that some of them have the good ideas, but to shape the good ideas. Let me give you a typical example. My company, I talk to a lot of my employees. The thing that the problem is that we don't have money. I told them, no, we don't have the systems in place. We don't have the systems in place because what is a company? A company is a system in which you can put small money and on the other side you get big one. But before you are able to put small money and get big one, the systems between must be in place. So if an accountant, a chartered accountant comes to your company and he wants to do an evaluation of the company, and he wants to do, is there going to be a continuum? Is there going to be evidence that if you put 1 million, you can get something out of this? That is what a chartered accountant will be looking at. So most of the companies don't have a clear idea about what a company is supposed to be. A company is a money-making machine that you're creating. That's what it is.
More with Dr. Tata Emmanuel Fon after the break. If you're just joining us today on the Shirlma Show, we're in the presence of Dr. Tata Emmanuel Fonna. He's a specialist in food technologies and mission building. So, Doc, Please tell me, what advice do you have for startups? Most of the startups that we hear about. Because we actually have an era now where we have a lot of startups. And now people are actually starting businesses for various reasons. You have some that maybe just start because they cannot find a job and they decide to maybe kind of like look for an opportunity, as you said, look around their environment and see if they can solve one problem or the other. So what advice can you actually give to most of these startups around us today?
Yeah, thank you. The advice I can give to young startup is that they should try as much as possible to have as much control over what they do as possible. They should avoid as much as possible buy and sell them. Because you see, most startups today, they buy almost everything. And somehow they think that they are creating value. You see, the more value, the lesser you buy, the more value you create. So the more of your product that is local, the more value you create. You would find a startup that buys almost everything and then somehow places the price to a point that people cannot afford. People, the value of your product will make more sense if most of it is locally made. So you would realize that a lot of us, a lot of young companies around, they buy a lot of products from China, and then they think that they can control the price, and they find themselves in serious problems because when duties change, when there is any problem with custom duties, it affects them. When the Chinese man says that I changed my price, my stuff is not this, my raw material is this, when there's problem in China, it affects them. So they have very little control. But guess what? I can easily have control over my cocoyams because I can have a farm, because I can cultivate my cocoyams, because I can be able to use my biogas, because I can be able to transform it. I can have my cocoyams in powder form. I haven't bought anything from anybody. That is the power of a business. You want to start a business, you have to look at how much percentage of your product comes from you. What value are you bringing into the marketplace? So we also have, of course, we have startups that may be providing a service. So ask yourself, so this service you're providing, what problem does it actually address? So when I was coming back home to Cameroon, I didn't just, I first of all spoke to a lot of entrepreneurs. So I made friends, made contacts, make your contact list also matters. You want to be an entrepreneur. What's your contact list? Who is in your contact list? Who are the people that you can learn from? This is very important. Who are your friends? They say that if you are the smartest person in your group and you realize you have to change the group, So these are some of the things that I think I can. There's some of the little advice I can give to young entrepreneurs.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So maybe if somebody is interested in niching, somebody wants to invest, somebody wants to buy some of your products, how can they get to AfroBrains Cameroon?
Yeah, AfroBrains Cameroon is located at Total Jouvence. That's the head office. It's located at Total Jouvence in Yaounde. And main office line is 67501 2353. 67501 2353. And we also have shops across Cameroon. We are found in Betwa, in the Bova, in Bafoussam, in Douala, in Limbe, in Boya, in Yaounde. So we have offices across, but somebody who wants to get any of this information can always get in touch with Luca. We also have a website, which is www.afrobrains.com. And we also have our Facebook page, which also is AfroBrains Cameroon.
Wow, thank you so much. Today, we were honored to be in the presence of Dr. Tata Emmanuel Fon, the founder and CEO of AfroBrains Cameroon. He's also a specialist in food technologies and nation building. Thank you for always being there for us. We are here because you're there. Please do not forget to subscribe to our channel, The Shirlma Show. Thank you.